Everyone, welcome to .NET Days. The topic for our presentation today is GitHub Copilot for SQL. I will just run you through what kind of AI, how you can integrate AI into your regular database development. Um, I am just, yes, navigating through the slides. Hi, I'm Shubhojit. I am in Microsoft for the past 2 years. I'm a product manager working on SQL Server data tools, SSAS and SSRS in Visual Studio. These are my coordinates. I would be glad if you give me feedback on my products as well. Uh, this is what I would be talking about in the session. So just in case you feel that this is not something you are uh, looking forward to, then it's perfectly fine. You can drop off from the session. Um, okay, so with this, I would want to start with a short question. Like, I know there are people who are SQL Server veterans, like people who have been using SQL Server from a time when I was learning coding. So anyone, if you want to share what was the first version of SQL Server you used, you can use the chat. I am checking. Anyone? 6.5, 7. Okay, that was long back. So the way SQL Server or coding in SQL Server used to happen in those times are very different from the way we code now. So I'll take you back to the first coding class that you had in your college or anywhere where you learned coding from. And the instructor might have told you that, before you write a piece of code, you're expected to write a comment. That comment is for people who would look at the code at a later point of time, or even you, if you want to look at the code at a later point of time and understand what you meant. Um, Fast forward to 2023, with the revolution of artificial intelligence, you are in an era where you're only expected to write that comment, and we would write the code for you. So I'll just run you through a very short demo. What I'm intending to show in the demo is we'll create two tables. One is customer, one is order. We'll fill in data. We'll show you that data, and we'll delete these tables, and we'll not write a single piece of code. We'll do everything with the help of GitHub Copilot. So starting with the demo, we write a comment. We write a comment where we want the table that we want to create, along with the columns that we want to create. Like if we want to create any column as a primary key, we mention that. And similarly, a table is created. When we write a piece of comment and we press enter, the entire prompt is shown. When we press a tab, then that prompt becomes a code. As you see, then when we execute this code, we are able to get the code being executed successfully. Now, we would go ahead and fill in a few rows in these tables that we just created. We write that prompt for the same, and we see that um, Copilot is able to generate codes, and we have the values. Automatically, the next prompt which you're expected to write, Copilot is saving you from writing that as well. You can just press a tab and the prompt fills in, and the same prompt gives you the answer of the code that you're trying to find. We'll execute this code. We see that it is perfect on the syntax and it is able to generate what you're looking for. Now we have created the table. We have filled in the data. We want to see the data. But you see, Copilot is again trying to guess what you might want to do. It asks you whether you want to do a stored procedure, but no, you don't. You want to see the customer table. So it gives the select statement, which shows you the customer table. Similarly, I have given the prompt for the orders table as well. And we see that exactly the data that we have just filled, we are able to see the data here. Similarly, we'll again go ahead and delete these tables. we write the prompt. We had an extra 2-3 characters before. We would remove this. It becomes a perfect comment. Once we enter, we get we get the code for deletion. And here we go, we have deleted it. So you see that we actually did not write even a single line of code while we executed this entire program. This might sound super simple, but this is just to give you the flavor of what we are trying to achieve. I'll go into some more complex things after explaining what GitHub Copilot is. So although GitHub Copilot has multiple use cases, one of them is to provide an autocomplete style suggestion from an AI pair programmer to generate snippets of code based on the comment that you've written within your developer IDE. Basically, you write the code in natural language, English, and we generate a snippet of code in the language that you're expecting the answer in. So we currently support all the major IDEs. Whatever IDE you're using, we have support of that. And the IDEs that you don't find the support of, we are working towards bringing support on that. A few prerequisite that you would require if you, after the presentation, if you're really happy and you want to try this out, all you need is a GitHub account, a subscription to a free trial of GitHub Copilot, or just in case you want to go ahead with a paid subscription, the extension of GitHub Copilot added to the IDE of your choice, and like very importantly, a curiosity to experiment with AI. Remember, this is Copilot. You are still the pilot. You cannot let the Copilot run the flight, right? So you have to understand it. You have to empathize. You have to understand what kind of replies you are wanting versus the replies Copilot is giving, uh, and then take the decision whether you would take that snippet of code or not. This is a very short demo where I show how a GitHub account can be created and how you can go ahead and try Copilot. I've used my college email ID. So anybody from hi to them. So we create an account on GitHub and there are a few questions which you got to answer. You press continue and we see that yes, we have been able to create a GitHub account successfully. Now you go ahead in the GitHub account, you see and you search for Copilot. You have the Copilot documentation here. In that, you would go ahead and try Copilot. Now, when I say try, you would not have to fit in your trial of GitHub Copilot.
Seems like we lost our presenter, but he will be rejoining here in a second. But while we're waiting for him to reconnect, I would just like to share again the schedule session here. And so we have a bunch of great sessions coming up. If you want to look at the session while we're presenting, here are all the agenda sessions and schedules for today. Here's just the big link so that you can access it. This is actually the agenda link. The other link is the link to all of the links that everyone is sharing in their presentations. And so Bruno shared a few how to access things and how to try things out. So definitely go check that out, because our goal here today is to show you the cool capabilities of Azure for .NET developers and let you go try it out in real time and start figuring this out. Oh, you are back. Welcome back. I think we lost you there for a second.
Yes, I'm back. I know I'm trying to share my screen. I'm on the office internet and I have absolutely no idea why it went off.
No worries. I think if there's at least not one
screen.
technical issue, it doesn't count as a dev conference.
Yes, there was a time when the lights went dim while I was presenting. So I again had to move around and get the lights on.
All right, you are back and good to go.
I am back. Perfect. So I just talked about if you're able to get GitHub Copilot, then install the GitHub Copilot extension. in your favorite IDE. I see some questions regarding SSMS. Erin Stiletto would be the right person to ask questions regarding when it will come in SSMS. But trust me, we are working on it. Um, yes, I'm able to navigate. So GitHub Copilot currently has three SKUs. One is Copilot for Individual, which is mostly designed for individual developers. It integrates within your editor, and it is a single person SKU that we have. Then we have Copilot for Business, where we have some additional functionalities like an admin seat management, policy controls, an integrated billing and usage report, and a telemetry policy where you can see what kind of usage you're having. Then we have Copilot for Enterprise, where we have an enterprise level admin experience, an org level admin experience, and an end user experience. We also have a way in which you can block public codes. And what I essentially mean is GitHub basically finds codes from all around the web and then tries to provide a suggestion. In an enterprise, you might want to keep your coding practices of the organization intact, and you can set it up for your enterprise. Navigating through the model in a very short span of time, when a user writes a prompt in natural language, it takes some code before and some code after that cursor, and this is transferred to the proxy service, which is basically Copilot, um, where we check for any personally identifiable information, any kind of hate speech, any toxicity, and it classifies the code based on what language you're trying to find. Then it sends this information along with the natural language prompt to the model. The model is basically the GPT model that we are considering. The model sends back a code which is checked for code quality. There can be different vulnerabilities in a code which might lead to SQL injection or any security vulnerabilities. That is again sent back. Model gives another code. We do a basic pruning. We see if there's any duplicate, and then we show a suggestion in the code editor. So you can understand that there are a lot of steps which go in between before a suggestion is shown to you, and that happens in a flick of a second. So you can understand how fast AI is moving. I'll go ahead and show you a few more demos where I'll show you some complex examples, what you can perform. Anybody who's new to it, who's new to SQL, this can be of real help. Anybody who's a .NET developer or in C Sharp, they can find some, you don't need to go into the syntax of SQL if you want to, use it for a specific purpose. So in the first demo, we would be using the Wide World Importers database, which is an open source database. And we are trying to run a query which requires a join between two tables there, purchase orders and purchase order lines table. And the output that we are wanting to see is basically for a specific supplier ID that we want to see the output for. We write the entire prompt in natural language, and we see, once we press enter, we see a snippet of code. We press tab, we press enter, again we press tab, we press enter. So we basically, when you're pressing a tab, you basically accept the code suggestion which is given to you. When you press enter, you want to see the next suggestion. As you see that we are able to see the exact details that we wanted. So these are the few columns that we wanted to see. The stock item ID, description, expected delivery date, and order date were the columns that we wanted to see for supplier ID 4, and we can see that we are able to generate that code. Now, while it is you might think that whenever you're trying to run a code like this and you just write the natural language prompt, it would understand whatever objects you have in your database and it would generate the query. Well, AI is not that intelligent yet, and we need to help it a bit. So here in this example, I'll show you that first I'll use a specific query to run a piece of code and show this in Azure Data Studio. and then take you to a different editor where the same natural language prompt would generate a different result. And then I'll show you how you can mitigate that and how you can get the same results in that other editor as well. So this is the natural language input that we are giving. This is the comment. Since it's a long comment, so I had to put it in 3 lines. We are using the purchase order lines table, and we are using purchase orders table to have the join. So the join expects a between clause and an and clause to join two tables. So we see that Copilot is switched on, and we go ahead and run this prompt. We see that the select statement comes with two different tables, and with the joint condition, which is specifically mentioned, with the where clause, between, and and clause. Once we run it, we see that it is running as expected. So description, expected unit, and the other columns were there. Now we go to Visual Studio, which is SQL Server data tools, and we run the same prompt. We see that it is the structure of the answer that it generates is same. It has a select statement, from, on, where, between, and, but the objects that should be there are missing, or it is identifying different objects. Because as you might remember, I said that before, the prompt, it checks the code before and after. So we need to give some brain into this AI. We need to paste the data definition language, which you can go as script as create, and you can find it here. You paste the data definition language of that um, table, of both the tables which are used in that join. So I'm using the purchase order tables and the purchase order lines table. I paste both of these tables before that prompt wherever I'm giving. You see the purchase orders and the purchase order lines table. There was one dash which was missing. Yes, I removed the previous piece of code which it had generated, and I try it again, and we see that it is able to generate the code that we are expecting. We'll still don't trust it. We'll try and run it. We see that we get the same output that we are expecting in Azure Data Studio. So you can understand that if we're able to push in the data definition language, or push in some brains, put in the context into Copilot should be able to generate the exact same result. So while you are experimenting it out, while we are experimenting different types of prompts, this is something which might really help you in identifying how you can tweak with it, and how we can understand, because Copilot in general do not have the context of the database. We are not going through your data, because a database might have n number of objects and tables. So if you really want to do a join or some complex operations, this can be really helpful if you're not getting the right answer that you're expecting. With the use cases, I know that making a code better is one of the biggest challenges that we face, and Copilot can really help you there as well. So Copilot can help you with performance optimization, and I would give you um, basics of how it is done. A few terms that we would be using is SQL Server parse and compile time and SQL Server execution time. So if you look at the first message which is there, the parse and compile time, this is something which we would actually look. So the parse time is the time to prepare the query by syntax check, creating a set of normalized tasks, and compile time is the time to run the query through the algebraizer. Um, so this is the metric that we would check while we try to identify how fast a query has run. So I'll go ahead with our first demo. This is something really simple. Here we are trying to generate a code using the year and month operator. And we see that this has a specific uh, SQL Server, like specific parse and compile time. And when we optimize it using Copilot, uh, Copilot generates a different piece of code which when we run, we see a better output and a better, the same output with a better time complexity. So we'll go ahead and run this. We see that we are getting the select statement with the year and month operator. The elapsed time is 165 milliseconds for this query. When we optimize the query, which is written above, we see that it uses a different format, and we have brought it down to 47 milliseconds. Very similarly, Copilot can be used to add indexes to data to enhance query performance. In like if the database is reasonably large, these minor optimizations can make a huge difference in the speed of the application or the code. Uh, we all know that while developing on .NET, you come across codes which are difficult to interpret, and you just know that it will impact your performance. Without even delving deep into the code, you can consider optimizing it and reducing the complexity. Once you use the Copilot chat with this, which is also available, you can even understand what a piece of code is running. This is an example of a more complex performance optimization where Copilot interestingly identifies a cursor. A cursor is a database objects that allow us to retrieve and manipulate each row at a time. So as a developer who's working on a different language, you do not need to know it. If you think that it can be performance optimized, you just go ahead and use optimization here, see that the output is same or not, and then you see if you are able to get the same output in a shorter period of time or not. Here again, we see that we are able to generate this at a shorter period of time. So it changes the cursor into a join, which significantly saves time because it has a different way in which the code is read. So I go ahead and write optimize the performance, the previous query. Forgot to make it a comment. And we need to set the statistics input output on so that we can see the messages. So it automatically gives that. We see that a select statement is given. And once we go ahead and execute that, we see that the prompt is being generated. This is a complex join which uses multiple operators, a where and a group by, to generate the same piece of output that the cursor had generated in the previous part of the query. So I guess you're understanding the point we're trying to achieve, that even if the code is really complex while you're doing something, this can really help you in making life simple for you. You don't need to understand it. If you think it can be optimized, check and go ahead with the new query. So with this, okay, a few things that you should care about or watch for while you're using this product is like, we are providing you a co-pilot. This is your personal assistant. Don't let your personal assistant take the decisions for you. Um, Writing prompts and writing these comments in natural language has its own learning curve. The same word might have a different connotation or a meaning. The same prompt can generate different answers. Different prompt can generate same answers. Based on the session that you're working on, till the session is on, Copilot is trying to make itself better. The moment you close the editor, Copilot forgets everything. Um, Sometimes Copilot, in the attempt to optimize your query, might end up changing the context or generating a different output. So please be wary of that. Please check the output first and then check what kind of optimization it has led to. So with that, I'll come to the point where I hear some questions. If there are some questions on the chat, I would. Do I have time? Mm, any question? Okay, so Tanya asks, so it can optimize stored procedure and be able to explain it. Yes, it would be able to optimize stored procedure. For the explanation part, you can use the Copilot chat, where if you are highlighting a piece of code, uh, it would be able to give you what that code signifies. For those not using Copilot yet, is it worth it? It's going to replace anyone anytime soon. And this is by Jajunk. No, nobody's replacing. So as I said, this will just help you in making things, making your life simple. This will just enhance your productivity. Um, not This is not here to take your job. This will help you in writing codes faster. Um, so there are two types of developers we are looking for. One, somebody who's new into the SQL ecosystem here. Since I'm explaining from a SQL point of view, somebody who's new SQL developer, he does not need to reference, the complex syntax. He can just go ahead. He can write what he wants to see, and eventually there's a learning curve of how these contexts, how these prompts are generated, how what kind of codes are generated based on that. So there can be a learning curve in that, but this can be really helpful for somebody who's new to it. And somebody who's a veteran, it would help them in doing things faster, like IntelliSense, like code snippets that you have in the editor. This is just something which really helps you uh, to upload your screen slides. I guess that would be taken care by the organizer. I'll see. Can one use natural language to refer to table names, or would you require additional prompting? Uh, it is expected that the table name that you're using would be of the exact word, the exact table. Like I used purchase orders and purchase order lines table. So the P was in capital, the O was in capital. So we ensured that we use the um, same text and with the same. It's basically like a proper noun that you got to use. That's the best practice. Sometimes AI does understand what you're trying to mean. Some more questions. Now I'm going to the questions which were asked previously. There are some hate speeches. Curious for what type of toxicity GitHub Copilot would be looking for. So we believe in responsible AI practices. So if you're putting a comment which has some words which are unparliamentary, or something which is not right, this is an extra piece of a check that we are ensuring that it does not return back an answer. It is same as like if you ask something uh, wrong to ChatGPT, it would not answer. So this also follows the same practices. So I guess we can it be used in the design phase too? I'm not sure I understood that question, but if you can elaborate it, I would be very happy to answer it offline. I guess we are towards the end of it. With that, I'll just summarize what we talked about. GitHub Copilot is your personal coding assistant. Consider it as an extra pair of hands on the keyboard, which does some things for you. Don't forget that you're the pilot, so you got to check whatever you're doing and see and take the final call. Um, for contextualization, Copilot needs to get the context of your database. By default, it does not have context of the objects which are present in your database. So it is important that you provide the context in by means of data definition language before the code, now before the prompt. In multiple scenarios, GitHub Copilot can help you optimize SQL queries and incorporating the best practices of SQL development into query building. Um, your data is safe. We do not store your data. We do not take your data. We the moment your session is closed, all data that we had are removed out of our system. That thank you so much for attending. There are 2 links. You can dive deeper into .NET and Azure with our curated learning collections. And also you can take the Cloud Skills Challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear all of the great things that you had to share. And I do want to say, I want to call out, in addition to GitHub Copilot, Microsoft has a lot of other great Copilots as well, including Microsoft Copilot for Azure. And so what I'm showing here is actually the Azure Developer Hub. And so that's developer.microsoft.com/Azure. And so you can learn a lot more about the Azure Copilot here, as well as just a lot of the other products and features that we have and featured solutions to see ways to be able to take this into the real world and start coding on it. But thank you so much, Suvajit. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to hear all of the things we could do with GitHub Copilot.